The story begins when we are introduced to a young student, Teito Klein, who goes to the Barsburg Military Academy. He has no memories of his past, but occasionally he has visions and dreams of a kid near a man with a strange necklace, when suddenly the city starts to get attacked. Teito used to be a slave, so Shuri Oak, the son of the respected Field-Marshal Wakaba Oak, always picks on him. But little did they know that Teito is the future god of destruction or the world hero. Teito prepares for the Begleiter exam with his best friend Mikij in order for them to graduate and become Begleiters, a staff officer in the army. The exam is known to be hard, and this year the class must divide into teams and try and defeat a troll. Teito and Mikij team up for their exam. The exam begins, and the beast takes out the students one by one until only Mikij, Teito, and Shuri, who's screaming for his life, remain. The troll wastes no time and tries to attack Shuri, but Teito manages to push him out of the way and dodge. Teito then jumps and holds into the troll's arm as Mikij elbows the troll's shoulder. The troll grabs Mikij in midair and Teito kicks his face and punches his chest several times. Teito then finally uses his magic powers to force the troll to surrender. The troll does so, but the chief of staff Ayanami appears and slices the troll's head off, claiming that Teito is soft. Nevertheless, 19 students pass the exam, 2 of them being Teito and Mikij. When Teito walks to an examiner's office to return his report, he hears something, and when he checks out, he sees the same necklace that he previously saw in his dream, while Ayanami talks that it's missing a stone, the Eye of Mikhail. That moment triggers a vision from Teito's past. In that vision, he sees Ayanami as the one who killed his father, the previous king of Rags. Ayanami is looking for that same stone that gives the wielder the power of God Mikhail. Teito tries to kill Ayanami but is stopped, taken prisoner, and put in a cell until he can be questioned. But with the help of Mikij, he escapes. However, when he is fleeing, Ayanami shoots a Zaphon, which Teito blocks but still lands some damage. Teito, whom Ayanami's Zaphon had previously struck, is about to hit the rocks below when a Hawksile rider breaks his fall. The other men notice he is hurt, and Frau, the man he collided with, carries him to a church. When Teito first awakes, he makes an attempt to flee out of terror by jumping from the window but is stopped by 3 men who identify themselves as Frau, Castor, and Labrador, all of whom are bishops of the church, which is located in the 7th district of the Barsburg Empire. Luckily, the Empire army cannot attack Teito as long as he is the protection of the church. Teito is concerned about Mikij's safety because Mikij assisted him to escape the academy. He walks out of his room in an attempt to go and find Mikij. However, he collapses from his injuries. Luckily, 3 sisters find him, and they take him back to his room and give him medicine. Then Teito walks into the library in the church with the intention of learning more about his mysterious history and his relationship to the Rags Kingdom. He decides to investigate his past and the Rags Kingdom. Back at the academy, Ayanami questions Mikij about whether or not he assisted Teito in escaping. When he declines to respond, Ayanami offers him 2 options, either save Teito or his beloved family. Teito decides to leave the church in order to find Mikij at Hoburg Fortress. However, Frau stops his first attempt to escape. Later, Teito helps out with the duties of cleaning the church and meets an old man who tells him that he can grant him a wish if he meets him at midnight. Teito wants to leave in the middle of the night, but Frau stops him. Teito gets angry when Frau calls him weak, so he uses his magic to attack him several times. But the best he can do is push Frau back. Teito uses his most powerful attack, resulting in a huge explosion, but Frau appears behind him and knocks him out. Teito thinks about what the old man said when he wakes up, and when the midnight bell rings, he decides to go to the courtyard. Frau figures out that something is wrong and follows him to the courtyard. Back at Hoburg Fortress, Mikij is still unsure if he should save Teito or his sister, even though he is being questioned about it. Teito talks to the old man and tells him about how much he wants to see Mikij. In exchange for Teito's soul, the old man would grant his wish. The old man puts a strange symbol on Teito's chest as Teito sees Mikij in a vision and runs toward him. Suddenly, he opens his eyes and sees the 3 bishops standing in front of him. Frau pulls a big scythe out of his arm, and he is surprised that Teito can see it. The bishops fight the man, and even though Teito wants to help, Frau tells him that he will only hurt the man's soul. They get outside and Frau engages with his scythe. The old man gets on top of a fountain and tries to escape with a portal. Frau restrains him and slashes his core wings. Frau then takes Teito to his room and removes the symbol from his chest. Teito then inquires Castor about what a core is. It turns out they are creatures that mess with men's wishes. They grant the man's wish but then put him or her through a series of bad things so that the person never gets what he or she wants and eventually falls into darkness and becomes a core host. Back at the academy, Mikage finally has made his decision and vows not to betray his best friend. Bishops Frau, Castor, and Labrador are curious as to what wish Teito made to the core because Teito is still touched by the interaction he had with the old man and the core. In the meantime, Teito is perplexed as to why everyone is so polite to him at the Barsburg church. After a vision, he remembers that he's the Rags Kingdom's successor and the Ore of the Eye of Mikhail. After the vision, Teito sees himself as a burden to the people at the church and decides to leave. However, as he nears the exit of the Barsburg church, he is startled to discover Mikage approaching him. While Mikage and Teito are conversing in one of the church gardens, a core sent by Ayanami appears and attacks them. Teito battles the core, who starts to fly away while dodging Teito's magic. Suddenly, Frau makes an appearance and purges the man's soul of the core. At night, Teito tells Mikage about his memories and relationship with the Kingdom of Rags. Teito confesses to Frau in their conversation that he thinks Mikage is keeping something from him while the bishops prepare for baptism. Mikage assists a girl with the core marking whose carriage has smashed into the church at the entry. The girl transforms into a core and assaults Mikage before he can take her to the bishops. Mikage tries to run away from her, but the core eventually catches up to him. The core then tries to take Mikage. Luckily, Teito shows up and uses his magic to stop her attack. The core is being controlled by Ayanami and takes Mikage hostage. Teito uses his magic again, but the core dodges it and knocks him back with its wings. Then, the core tries to end Mikage's life and Teito's Eye of Mikhail activates, rendering the core blind. Frau arrives and vanquishes the core. Teito awakens and Mikage thanks him for saving his life. Meanwhile, Labrador, who can see the future, says that Teito's world will be soon destroyed by someone. During the annual bazaar, Mikage thinks about how Ayanami made him choose between Teito and his sister. He starts to wonder if he should leave the church to find his sister, but decides to stay for a while after seeing Teito happy with his presence. Later, both Teito and Mikage see the Teijo run away with a loaf of bread. One of the bishops helps out Teijo from getting caught after stealing a piece of bread. The kid tells Teito and Mikage about his past, and later his dad comes to pick him up to take him home. Teito wonders why the man's hand is cold and rushes after them. Teito finds them and the man reveals that he's a core. The core starts to rampage, destroying the church grounds. It attacks Teijo, but Teito protects him. The core tries to attack Teito from behind, but the Eye of Mikhail activates and protects him from the core and then disappears, making Teito question what kind of power was that. The core uses this moment as a distraction to attack again, but Frau comes in and purges the core. While Teito and Mikage are conversing, Labrador predicts that the storm will arrive very soon and that the current situation is its calm. Then Teito senses how cold Mikage's hands are, signaling that he will soon transform into a core. Mikage suddenly hears Ayanami's voice in his head telling him to kill Teito. He senses something awakening within of him and, as a final courtesy, begs Teito to kill him. Mikage starts to cry out in agony. Mikage's final words to Teito are that he loves him and that Teito will always be just as important to him as his family. Mikage gets under Ayanami's control and tries to use his magic to kill Teito, but Castor's doll takes the hit. Teito manages to run away while blocking Mikage's magic and gets into a room to trap him. Mikage releases one core wing and literally teleports behind Teito to beat him up. Teito manages to fall into the water and tries to sneak attack Mikage, but it's useless as he gets beaten to the ground and then choked up in the air. Mikage puts a restraint collar on Teito to take him back to the Empire. Teito makes an attempt to end his own life in an effort to save Mikage, but the collar stops him and passes out. Suddenly, he has a vision of himself running up some stairs and sees his inner self restrained by a huge statue. He starts hitting the statue and frees his inner self, which merges with him. The statue follows his soul and poses a pledge on its knees. The Eye of Mikhail activates, turning Teito's eyes into crimson red as God Mikhail possesses Teito's body, and questions Ayanami, who's in shock if he was the one who hurt his master. Mikhail sends out multiple magic shots that hurt most people in the room. Ayanami uses his magic to restrain him until he passes out. Ayanami then tries to finish him, but Frau appears and cuts the threads that were choking Teito off. Frau and Ayanami start their fight and Ayanami finally understands that Frau is the god Zehel, one of the 7 ghosts. Frau's catchphrase, "May God be with you," lets Teito know who he is. Ayanami grabs Frau's scythe and pushes it away, slicing part of his core wing. As a result, Mikage's soul is sliced away and Ayanami tells Teito go and get his own revenge against him. Mikage starts to fade away as Teito runs to hug him, but Mikage starts to disappear. Frau takes Teito to his dorm. A few days later, Frau comes to see Teito and sees a cute pet crawling close to him. It turns out that the pet is Mikage's reincarnation. Frau tries to take Teito's collar off, but they make a deal instead. The deal makes Frau Teito's master. Teito attends Mikage's funeral. Ayanami informs Miroku that Teito should be put to death now that he has the eye at Hoburg Fortress since he is a threat. Ayanami is instructed to keep it a secret by Miroku, who dismisses this. However, Ayanami advises to kill Teito while they still have a chance, or better, while they still can before he gets too powerful. Teito, in the meantime, makes the decision to leave the church but runs into Castor, who asks him if he saw Zahel. Castor puts Teito to sleep when he admits he knows it was Frau. The Black Hawks are getting ready to go back to Hoburg to get the eye of Mikhail. Frau steps in and says he couldn't erase Teito's memory and allow him to forget Mikage's final smile as Castor prepares to delete his memory. While walking away, Frau's scythe goes out of control and attacks Teito. Suddenly, the god Mikhail awakens and stops it. Mikhail recognizes them as part of the 7 ghosts, but uses an illusion to threaten them. He tells them to never think too much of themselves as they don't hold the power of a true god. He then asks them to remove Teito's collar, otherwise his power will be always restrained. Castor informs Frau that the collar around Teito's neck responds to 3 commands: bind, sleep, and pain. With the sleep command, Frau puts the deity to sleep. The 2 bishops talk about how it's almost impossible to believe that the eye of Mikhail was under their protection for quite a few times. They talk about fate, on how Teito could become the angel god who will protect the world, or if he will fall according to ancient prophecies and become the angel of darkness who will destroy it. Teito is brought to a location that displays Mikage's final remarks when he regains consciousness. Teito then lets out all the pent-up emotions he had about Mikage's death and cries out. This is all for this anime. Give the video a like and I will see you in the next minutes.